Okay, we're here today with Dr. Eric Goodman, and we're going to be demonstrating the foundation exercises. We'll give you specific instructions on how you can actually do it yourself. So, Eric, why don't you start the process?
So for the first thing I want to do, I want to show your audience, especially the part of the audience that has back pain right now. We've talked about this. There's so many people really unnecessarily going through very nagging chronic back pain. The first exercise that I teach everybody is called the founder. And I'll demonstrate the exercise, the full founder first, so that you can see it. But then I'm going to show you a little bit of a change for acute back pain that allows them to do the exact same exercise, just a little bit safer, a little more quality control, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So the first thing I'll show you, and again, the founder is about engaging the posterior chain properly, not just engaging it, but teaching those muscles to connect together, to support your weight properly as it's designed to be supported. So the profile angle always works the best. I want you to think of a chair pose in yoga. Chair pose in yoga is going to be something similar to this. The knees are going to come forward, you're going to be supported pretty heavily in the quads, as well as a little bit in the glutes. The difference we make in foundation training is that as soon as you start bending the knees, you push the hips back. So the knees aren't coming forward. What ends up happening is those knees come too far forward as you dorsiflex the ankle way too much. So we're keeping the bend in the hips as opposed to the knees. So the knees unlock, the hips pull behind you, lengthening the front of your body. As soon as you're doing this properly, you're going to feel some tension go right into the lower back muscles. Your sternum lifts, you spread your chest out, the arms go back behind you, and you're externally rotating. So we're always here. We're short here all the time, and we're short here all the time. So we just did the opposite. We lengthened, and then we lengthened. We're using the muscles in the back of the body here to engage that, to keep it open. So the founder goes from here, the hips pull back, and you're going to start feeling tension first at the lower back, then at the butt muscles, then at the hamstrings. Turn the thumbs out to open the chest further, and then slowly, without the knees moving, so push your knees back a little bit, straighten them a little, right there. Nothing else changes. You just switch that leverage now by pushing the arms forward as you pull the hips back. You should feel a lot of pressure in the back right now. Squeeze your knees together just a little bit and back just a little, right there. So that's all in the hamstrings now.
Yes, it is.
And now lift your arms just as high as you can, okay? And now the normal founder is going to go from here, continuing all the way down to the ground, which is hard for a lot of people, but when you do it, the knees stay bent, so go ahead all the way down, and your weight stays back on your heels. That's the key ingredient there, is that weight on the heels, and you're going to feel a big, long stretch at the back of the body here. Push your knees back just a little bit. Lift your hips away from your heels, right there, and you're going to feel it start to tremble in the back of the legs there. And that shake, that's physiology at its finest. That's the changes you want to make. That's your body adapting to a longer tension.
And does the low back start to, this seems like a stretch for the low back.
It's a stretch quite literally from here to about here, okay? So your weight's back behind you. You're just going to hang on to this stretch for a couple seconds and actually walk your hands forward as you pull your hips back further. So you're going hip distance to hand distance as far as possible. And you keep the knees bent the whole time. That's the key.
And you're breathing on this.
Breathing definitely helps a little bit. Slow, easy breathing. You can kind of,
So no special type of breathing?
No special type of breathing, just breathing. Slowly, controlled breathing. Try to stay in this stretch for about 20 or 30 seconds. And now the key thing here, most important aspect of this exercise is you're going to first put your hands back on your shins. So go ahead and put your hands on your shins. You're going to keep your weight back on your heels. So you're leaning behind you the whole time. Your hands are here. You're going to squeeze your shoulder blades together to widen your chest. Keep on pulling that chest up, 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 up. You're going to extend the lower back. And as soon as you feel these muscles engaged, push the arms behind you again. So open up. You're coming back to here. Push the knees back. So you're here. You're going to push the knees back, loading the weight here and here. And then very slowly increase that tension and finish the exercise strong by lifting the arms as high as they can go and pushing the knees back further. Lengthen the legs as much as possible. And your face should look reasonably tight right now. So relax your jaw, lift your head up, 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 and then just go ahead and stand all the way up. And just enjoy that for a second. See what that feels like.
It definitely stretches.
Stretches a lot and strengthens equally. That's the key part there.
It's interesting, so you get two for the price of one.
Equal parts stretch and strengthen. Absolutely.
So, and with this, normally with this stretch, as I understand it, ideally you want to activate the antagonist muscle. And then stretch the agonist muscle. Is that what you're doing here?
It's part of what we're doing here.
Okay. It's more complex.
Change the word muscle to chain.
Okay.
Chain of muscles. Anterior chain, posterior chain.
Okay.
So same stretch right here. This is the one that's going to help your audience.
Okay.
That one's going to help a lot of the audience, but this one's going to help the back pain sufferers right away.
Okay.
So you're stretching. you're using this stool, and the same exact principle applies. Your weight's on your heels, your chest is high. You're going to kind of squat down a little bit, pull your butt back, and just put your hands right here, okay? Your weight's on your heels, and your hips are back as far as they'll go, and you're keeping the front of the body long. You're going to walk the hands forward as you pull the hips back. That's all you're going to do until you're really stretching pretty hard, which most people will get to pretty fast. Now, the key to this now is once you're stretching, you're going to start pushing all the weight into your heels and lifting your torso up until your hands can go back behind you. So instead of stretching to the ground, we're just stretching to the chair. Very, very simple change. Sorry. Yeah. So walk the hands forward a little bit and pull the hips back. There. And you can feel how much that's already starting to stretch.
Yeah.
Okay? Now what I want you to do, I'm seeing a little external rotation at the foot here, so turn this foot in a little bit right there. And we talked about how it feels to grab the ground with your arches a little bit. So I want you to do that. I want you to pretend you're palming a basketball with your hand and do that on your feet. Just grab the ground and feel how many more muscles become engaged.
Oh gosh, it's amazing.
It's a completely different feeling.
It is.
Very subtle
especially
change.
The calf muscles.
Yeah, very subtle change, very big impact. So now I want you to push your weight fully into the heels. Start lifting your chest, so extending your lower spine, lifting the sternum as high as you can. Keep coming until your hands slide back. And now all your weight can be supported, and keep the chest there as you push the arms behind you, widening this as much as you can. This is why I like people to wear that IntelliSkin shirt I was talking to you about, because it takes you here.
Okay.
It's pulling from the back of your body, just like your muscles are right now. I think it's a great idea. Push the knees back just a bit, so get that stretch back into the hamstrings right there. Nothing else changes, just the lever, so you're bringing the arms up. It's basic physics. The hips are the fulcrum. This is your lever arm. You're increasing resistance by lengthening the lever arm. And then just stand up.
How long do you hold this stretch?
Give it, at first, about 10 to 20 seconds.
So
this
is accelerated, because normally you'd hold that for 10 to 20 seconds.
Each position is going to be 10 to 20 seconds.
Okay.
So
that's an important point.
10 to 20 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, 10 to 20 seconds, 10 to 20, and then 10 to 20.
Okay, so the whole, that's the founder.
That's the founder.
And the whole sequence is what, 2-3 minutes?
It's about 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's about 2 minutes or so. You want to do that often.
Often.
Yeah. You know,
If you're in back pain acutely, like you had mentioned in interviews, like 10, 20 times a day.
Yeah, and as you notice right now, this gets you out of breath quickly.
Yes,
you
it
feel
does.
how many muscles you're working.
Yeah.
Even though you're just in these body weight postures.
It is very surprising because there's no weights. You're not jumping up and down. It's really almost like an isometric contraction.
People laugh at me because I start sweating immediately all the time, but it's because my body has adapted to using as many muscles as possible.
You're sweating a little bit too.
Yeah, it's just from doing one founder.
Yeah,
that happens to me all the time.
And in after I started learning and teaching the peak 8 exercises with the high intensity aerobics, that was the high intensity exercise training. One of the things, the characteristics that to know that you're doing it right is you start to sweat immediately.
Right away.
So if you're sweating, is it an indication that you are really activating a tremendous amount of muscle mass?
When you're doing that founder, when you're doing it properly, the first couple times you do it, you're doing it as well as you can do it, which is perfect.
Yeah.
After you've done it 10 or 15 times, you start doing it a lot better. Your body adapts to it a lot faster, and you start pulling in more and more muscles.
Oh, so that's when you're doing. See, I'm not sweating at all, but you're sweating like crazy.
When you've been doing this stuff for a year or two, when I'm in this position, I mean, just watch what my arms do, watch what my shoulders do, watch what my whole body does. I'm not just here. I'm here. It's a very different thing. And if you feel the tension anywhere in my body right now, and you see my hands are spread apart, so I'm using my forearm muscles. My shoulders are wide, so I'm using the whole chain on the back of my arm here. Every muscle in my body that is accessible is being activated, and the oven goes right on.
So would you say that's a pretty good indicator, barometer of how well you're doing the exercise? If you start to sweat, you know you're starting.
It's one of them.
Okay.
Shaking is the best.
Shaking is the best.
That's the true barometer.
Okay.
The stronger a person is,
the more they shake?
As counterintuitive as that is.
Wow.
The stronger they are, the more they shake. When
and
I show this to my athletes,
where's the shaking going to be?
So as soon as you get to about here, you're going to start shaking at the glute-hamstring connection because these muscles are pulling on each other to support my entire upper body weight right now.
Okay.
So my whole torso is supported here and here right now.
Okay.
As I go further, my hamstrings start to hold a little bit more, my lower back starts to hold a little bit more. So I'm literally, my whole body is being pulled inward towards my hips.
Okay.
Just pulling that chain together and creates this whole physical, crazy, exponentially strong physical system of pulleys working against each other and with each other. And And that's what the founder is. It's the physics of the human body.
And that if you were going to identify or isolate all of your exercises, the best and most important one is the founder. It's the foundation of the foundation.
The founder is the principle. It's called the founder because it sounds the closest to foundation.
Okay.
Yeah, and it is the exercise that everybody has to learn.
Okay.
And it's actually, it's neat. It's getting a little namesake. People are starting to know what a founder is, which I think is pretty cool. So I want to see you do this one more time, and I want your viewers to see you do this one more time, but I want you to do it with wider legs, because that exact same exercise can be done here. Okay. And it affects the muscles differently, and it starts to bring in a very important muscle called the adductor, which is the inner thigh muscle here.
So
that's fine there. You want
seeking to contract the adductors too?
Yeah. You don't need to. We're going to pull that in, and I'll explain it as we go. All I want you to do, you're going to start with your about a foot and a half away, and your chest is high, your chin is back. So you've got a tendency to do this.
Yes.
To really shorten those occipital muscles back here. So I want you to pull the chin back to lift the sternum. Perfect. Now reach the arms forward to the chair as you pull the hips back. So that folding happens by pulling the hips, not leaning forward. And you can already feel that feels a little different than the first one.
Yes, it does.
Yep, keep on pulling back. And again, you're inching the fingers forward and equally pulling the hips back. It's pure counterbalance. That looks good. And now we're going to add a little lever into this. As soon as you can push your knees back just a little bit more, find that tremble. They'll start to tremble. There you go. And now touch the feet to the ground. Do that little gripping right there. Oh. And you're going to do this with your feet. Roll side to side. You're going to feel it stretch a lot of different muscles in there and actually change the stretch along the whole hamstring. And what we're teaching is end range movement, improving flexibility, improving strength, and teaching those muscles to operate smoothly and gracefully under tension. So keep those knees back a little bit and make it more of an ankle movement than a knee movement. There you go. That's better. And then again, now we have this long chain of muscles now. We've stretched it out really well. You're going to support it. You're going to keep those long muscles in their effective length by strengthening them here. So we walk your hands back to the end of the chair. Chest up, right there. Arms back behind you. All that weight is on your heels. Heels, heels, heels. That's the most important thing to remember when you're learning this, is the weight is back. You should be able to dorsiflex the ankles pretty easily without falling over.
Yeah.
Yep, and then push the arms forward as the hips pull back. So again, distance between the two. Good. Straighten the knees just slightly. That's perfect. That's textbook. And just lift your arms as high as you can.
Now, this is somewhat limited range, right?
Yeah, you've got pretty limited shoulder range there.
But this will improve with time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. When I first started training my partner with this, Peter, he could go to about here. He was an endurance athlete and just couldn't really take it up any higher. Go ahead and stand all the way up.
Well, show us what it should look like.
Well, so in that exact same position, if I were stretching and I was here, I'd be pulling my hips back as far as I can, sitting entirely back into my posterior chain with the weight driven through the heels.
Okay.
So right now my tension is held in my lower back, my glute muscles, my hamstrings. When I grab the ground with my feet and I squeeze my heels in a little bit, that tension stays here and increases in the adductors. So my pelvis is being stabilized from below and above right now. When I then come from here to here, it goes more into the back muscles. And when I lift up, so your shoulders came about to here, and where I'd like to see them go is about to here.
How long does it take to move from that?
A little while.
Is it weeks, months, years?
It's months.
Okay, months.
Yeah, I can't say that it would have. If it happened in weeks, you'd be ripping some stuff in there.
Okay.
It's a gradual adaptive process.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing.
Do you recommend that everyone start with this chair position, or?
If you need to.
If you need to.
If you can stretch down to the floor comfortably, stretch down to the floor. It's better for you.
Okay.
This is for acute pain. This is for elderly. This is for people with really limited ranges of motion. It's also for big guys and big girls. It's for big people where you have a lot of muscle tension.
Okay.
Teach your body to hinge, because that's what that is. That's all we're doing.
Teaching them to hinge.
We're teaching you, instead of bending at the spine.
How about elderly people too?
Same principle applies. When you're reaching for something, if I have something right here and I want to reach for it, I have two options. I can bend or I can hinge. See the difference?
Yes.
That's what we're made for.
Well, do it one more time.
The front of the body stays long.
Just do it one more time. Bend.
Bend. Happens here. Force goes right into the worst part of the
Which is what
body.
most people do.
This is almost everybody.
Yeah.
Versus same exact movement, hinging. Just shifting the weight. Pulling my hips back behind the heels to fold my body as it's supposed to fold. It's that simple. It's so easy.
Basics.
Basic, basic, basic. Absolutely. So another one I want to show you, we talked about the adductor-assisted back extension, which I think you're going to like a lot.
Okay.
It's harder than the one we just did.
Great.
So I'll show it to you first.
Okay.
We're going to go down on the ground, so
okay.
I'll just go ahead. We don't need this. I'll just move this. But what this exercise does is it teaches you to use your built-in tractioning system, which happens at the hamstrings and adductors. So you're laying flat on your ground, on the stomach. Your knees are squeezing together. That's the key ingredient to this movement, is the knees squeezing together as you bend your legs about 45 degrees. The knees are on the ground. They're not up here, okay? So the knees are down on the ground, squeezing together. Your elbows are going to pull against your body, and your chin is going to pull back. And all you're going to do is lift and squeeze. And that's it. If you want to add resistance, you just do that.
Okay.
Very basic, and much like most things that are effective, very basic and surprisingly difficult. So, your legs are squeezing together. Think of a zipper. You're zipping your legs up. Bend the knees just a little bit more, right there. Squeeze tight right here. Dorsiflex your ankles a little bit. There we go. Keep that squeeze happening and lift your chest as high as you can. And now the whole exercise happens right here. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And just try to hold for about 15 to 20 seconds with 80% of the focus being right here at the knee squeezing. And now feel what happens when you bring those arms just a little further forward.
Do I have to?
Yes. I think you'll enjoy the benefit of that. And then we'll do one more lever change just to show you. Turn your palms up. Yeah, keep on lifting. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze at the knees. And then just relax. That's how a back extension should be done. What we just did is we used your adductor muscles to literally pull your pelvis away from your spine, tractioning the lower back. We then took your upper back up to fire these muscles in a longer position than they're used to, teaching them to stay long and strong instead of the opposite.
Wow. So this is an interesting process, though, because you're actually, you know, with traditional weight training, you're training the big muscles, you know, the hamstrings, and a lot of people use the biceps and shoulders. But with this, you're training the muscles that are actually responsible for holding the posture, the ones that are going to do the work.
Yeah. And you're teaching them to work when you activate the larger muscles, which is much more important. You're teaching the deep layer to support the superficial layer. They're not separate. You just see the other ones. You know, it's easy to see a person that has a strong butt, or strong quads, or strong calves.
You start hyperventilating too after you do this? I mean, short of breath?
You're experiencing what everybody experiences, which is like, I just exercised for a minute. And I'm exhausted. What's going on? And you're pulling more muscles into the same.
That's called
movement.
a clue. It's
right?
You're onto something.
Yeah, we are onto something, and it is powerful stuff. And it is, if there's anything I can really tell people, it's pay attention to the learning curve. Respect the idea that you don't know how to do this yet. You will know how to.
I'm still shocked how much you're sweating.
I'm being interviewed by Joe Mercola.
I interviewed you for an hour and a half, and there wasn't a drop of sweat.
No, I do. When I do these exercises, you know, if there's anything that I always try to do, it's show people the best way possible to do them. And in order to do that, it's like I'm putting the same emphasis into a founder that that somebody puts into a 300-pound deadlift. I'm putting that much muscle.
And you've done a 300-pound deadlift.
I've done
regularly.
These things. I've been there. I don't do them anymore, but I used to do those things.
Even though you like deadlifts a lot, you still don't do them.
I don't need them anymore.
Interesting.
If I feel weak, if at any point in my life I start feeling like I'm not strong enough, I'll add the resistance in. But for the past 5 or 6 years, I've been doing pretty well without the resistance training.
And your anticipation is you probably won't need them in the future.
Well, yeah, and remember, I surf 5 or 6 days a week, and I hike all the time, and I do a little bit of running, especially hill running. I do a lot of pull-ups. I do a lot of stand-up paddleboarding, which is a really intense body workout when you do it in an intense way.
Do you have foundational components to your paddleboarding?
Anytime I paddle, anytime I do, even when I hike, I don't go in this position, I go in this position. So when I'm bringing my paddle out here, when I pull, think about how many more muscles are engaged in this movement than this movement.
Which is what most people do.
So what I do is I add as many muscles into every movement that I make, and I didn't figure out these exercises because of my understanding of physiology. I advanced my understanding of physiology as I began to understand these exercises. They taught me. When I healed my own back with this stuff, it changed my understanding of the body. It wasn't a theory that I had, it's a theory that I've developed going through this process.
And how long did it take you to improve your back pain? Or does your back pain answer that, and then the typical person when they're using
it? Took me a year.
A full year.
But I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I didn't have anybody teaching me this stuff.
Okay.
As soon as I started strengthening my lower back, I was constantly improving. Once I got to a point of about a year or so, those back muscles were so strong that I no longer had to worry about strengthening them, and I could focus on all the other stuff. That's when the back pain went away. That's when it was like, even if I wake up in the morning and I'm twingy at all, which still happens, I still have, if you look at an MRI of my spine, you'd probably say, Eric, you should go get surgery.
Yeah, that's
what other doctors have said.
Right.
But it's strong enough and it's supported enough by my primary stabilizers, my muscles. That's my support structure, is muscles. Tendons and ligaments, or I'm sorry, ligaments and joints, I don't trust them as much. Ligaments stretch over time and they don't have any elastin in them, so they don't come back. Once they're long, they're no longer a very effective support structure. Joints are only as good as the muscles surrounding them. So my idea was, well, I'm going to make sure that my major joints are surrounded by the strongest parts of me. And that changed my entire understanding of physiology, and it negated the requirement of weights being the only way that I got stronger.
And how long would it take for a typical person with low back pain to improve after adopting this?
Some the next day, some the next week, some the next month.
Okay, so
very few people.
Very few longer than a month.
Very few people longer than a month.
Okay, that's very impressive.
It's all about, so when you're doing this stuff, when you're looking at this and you're paying attention to the exercises that we're doing, what you need to realize is that it's going to feel awkward at first. And if you're doing it right, it's going to feel more awkward. Your body's not used to doing this.
No.
Your body's used to doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
As soon as you teach it to go here, what's going on here? Something's wrong. So you're going to go, what everybody does is you're going to go into the founder and you're going to do this, because that's where your body's used to going. Your knees are going to come way forward. You're basically going to do a crappy squat. Don't do that. Your knees are supposed to be over the heels, not over the front of the foot. Over the heels with your hips pulling back. Think of your sternum coming up as your hips pull back. And that's going to bring you to your effective length. And there are a lot of people out there, not as many as the majority, which is this position, but there's a lot of people out there that are hyperextended. Their back basically folds about 6 inches above where it should, and they're just collapsing on their spine. The telltale sign is the rib cage sticking out right here. For those people, the only change we make is you pull the hips back, you tap right at the base of your rib cage, and tighten. And that's going to bring, again, it's going to bring those hip flexors to its effective length. So if you're a hyperextended person, what a chiropractor would call hyperlordosis,
or someone with ligamentous laxity, or hypermobile.
Dancers, gymnasts, people like that, and others, but those are the primaries. Go from here,
usually women,
to just tightening up the hip flexors, just a little bit more. Don't try to tighten up right here. Tighten up high, because your rib cage is the problem, not the hips. Okay, and I can go more in depth with that, and I have videos that show different things like that. But
perfect.
For most people, I would say 70 to 80% of the population that has back pain, the problem is that they are too short here, too much pressure at the hips, too much pressure at the joints in the spine. We need to lengthen that, teach the muscles to work properly. And the founder exercise, that adductor assisted back extension you just did, those are two really, really quick ways to do that.
Okay.
If you want to learn one more exercise,
yeah, definitely.
This is just a lengthener. So we're just going to lengthen the front of your body here. Okay. So I want you to step forward with your left foot forward and that right foot back. And what I want you to pay a lot of attention to is what's going on in the back leg. Is your foot turned out? Is it turned in? You want your hips to be squared.
Okay.
One really quick way to square your hips is just to bring your right arm forward as far as you can. And as soon as you feel squared up, as soon as you feel a little bit of pressure, go right here, right into the glute on that front leg.
I feel it on the right.
So rotate, rotate. You're going to feel a little stretch going into the hip flexor and into the calf on the right leg probably.
With rotation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Rotate, yeah.
And now, stay rotated like that and just bring the arm back.
Oh, that
lift
seems...
your chest up.
That seems
so
like...
you're a little off.
Yeah.
Right there.
But I wasn't getting the stretch until I rotated it.
Yeah, so that rotation, bringing that arm forward allowed that left glute to absorb pressure. That's what it's supposed to do.
Okay.
So what you're going to do here is we're going to lengthen the front of you. So I want you to bring your arms all the way up in the air as high as you can, and you can straighten this front leg a little bit. The leg doesn't need to be here. It needs to be just about there.
Okay.
Okay? But the hips are square. That's the most important thing, is that the pelvis is squared up. You're going to touch your fingertips together above you like this, and you're going to reach as high as you can straight towards the ceiling. Then you're going to take 3 big deep breaths. On each breath, you're going to pull your chin back, and you're going to lift your sternum up, and you're going to start feeling a stretch on this right side going into that right hip flexor. Keep on reaching up. Good. And now slowly pull your chest back into extension right there, and then you're going to side bend towards me, away from that right leg. So you're lengthening as much as you can from this right elbow to the right hip flexor, and you're going to feel all this start to pull. And keep on pulling your chest back towards me. Keep on opening up. You're pretty tight at the front. This will be good for you. Now look up just a little bit. So there you go. Smile. And then just go ahead and stand up. And what we're doing here is we're stretching the antagonist muscle. I mean antagonist in the sense of theater and plays.
Sure.
This is the troublemaker right here. This is the thing that is creating improper movement in a lot of people, is way too tight of hip flexors. So we're opening them up, teaching your body to operate longer. Let's do it on the other leg also. And you feel, even with a more, what would be considered a pretty gentle stretch in comparison to the others,
sure,
you're still activating a lot of muscles. You're still teaching your balancing muscles to support.
Just beginning to feel the sweat start to come too.
Good. Okay, so let's push that knee back just a little. Remember the knee, you're never, in a lunge especially, you're never coming forward of the ankle.
Interesting.
So as soon as you come here, you're in the quads, and the quads aren't primary stabilizers.
Okay.
The hip is a primary stabilizer. When you push that knee back and drive force through the heel, you feel the glute stabilize.
Oh, instantly.
You feel that, right?
As soon as you put the force in the heel.
As soon as you're there. So force in the heel on the front foot, and then just feel what happens when you switch. You can't really keep the force on the heel.
No, you can't.
So the knee needs to be back a bit. You want that glute stabilizing you, keeping the knee safe. And now lift as high as you can. And remember, the distance we're going for is from right here, from the rib cage down to the hip, on the side of the back leg. And then you're going to stretch other way. Stretch away from the back leg, lengthening as much as you can as you pick that up. And now from there, so you're leaning with the head a little bit, so I want you to pull it back. There you go, right there. And just try to go 3 or 4 breaths. And there's a lot of little variables we put on this, and I'll show, if you want me to show a couple exercises where you kind of take this, you can kind of see where your body is really designed to absorb stability. And go ahead and pop up. 20 or so seconds in each of these poses at first is plenty. Just like any exercise, you can overdo it really easily.
Sure.
And you don't want to.
Yeah.
So it's the longer you take to learn this, the better your success will be in the long run. Absolutely. A couple exercises a day is plenty for the beginning. You can do more, especially if you're an athletic person with some good body sensitivity. But what you do with that lunge, so what we just did is we just took you here. We got you way up high, got you to pull, got you to lengthen all of this stuff. But what that's ultimately going to do is allow you to use this left glute as it's supposed to be. So if you feel my back as I'm doing this, put your hand right there on this side, right on the low back there. And I want you to feel the difference between this
Total difference.
and this.
Yeah, one's contracted, the other's not.
And now the entire system here that's working is my lower back is strong enough to allow my glute to do what it's supposed to. So when I go here, I'm supported at my low back. When I rotate, my glute is absorbing all of that pressure. When I come back, it's a press through the glute that brings me back. So absorbing pressure, kind of gaining elastic potential, contracting to come back. There's a lot of different exercises we do with this. One is just a very basic hinging movement, just like this, keeping the back tight, keeping the chest high. Another one is actually using that glute to rotate all the way down and all the way back up, all of the pressure right in here. This is your pressure center. This is where you're meant to absorb. Not here, and certainly not at the discs of the
Which is where most people
get it.
Yeah.
Do you want to try one of those lunges?
Sure,
Just to feel it?
sure.
So step forward with your right foot. Chest up high. Good, good. Okay, so what you're looking for is pretend that I have a string right here. When I pull you, I'm not pulling you down. I'm pulling you up, and the only key is that your knee can't come forward. So pull, and you're already starting to feel it. I can see it. Right into that right glute and right hamstring.
Yep.
Okay, now push that pressure straight through the right heel. There you go. Push your arms back just like the founder. So this is basically a one-legged founder.
Yeah.
Same angles, same everything. Bring those arms forward towards me. Feel how much weight increases. Just right to about here. Yeah, perfect. Just hang out there for a second. Let that just absorb tension. And now the key here, you'll be able to do this. You're going to use this muscle right here, this chain, to lift your chest up. So you're going to contract that tight muscle, and you're going to literally lift, standing up. Yeah, and then you're going to push forward again. Let's make it a little bit easier. Bring your arms back behind you, doing the same thing. So just keep your chest wide right there. Do that exact same motion. So coming up and down. You're using the glute contraction. Can you feel that? So it's here, right here. Pushes you forward, pulls you back. Pushes forward, pulls back. That's your posterior chain in action. That's how it works. It supports the upper body.
Oh, boy.
Switch legs just so you don't walk in circles. Yeah, that right leg really likes to turn out a lot. We're going to fix that.
Really? That'd be nice.
Yeah,
it really messed up my knee. I got a recent knee injury from it.
Yeah.
I think that was related to some of the muscles that were turned off.
Yeah. Well, what I'm seeing on you is the high adductor on the right side. That right foot probably flattens a little bit more easily than their left does. Yeah. It's adductor. It's, I would say 80% of what's going on is right here.
Interesting.
Yeah. And we'll do a couple tools for that. Okay, so that left knee's coming a little further forward than it should. Push it back even a little more, and now your chest comes up and forward, and your hips, in order to facilitate that, your hips have to kind of pull back a little bit to bend you. And that's when you're going to feel that tension go right into the glute and hamstring connection. Yeah. Perfect. And that was textbook. So load the tension. This is elastic potential. You're stretching the muscles here, contracting the muscles to come back up. Perfect. Now imagine doing these exercises, strengthening these muscles, and then going and doing your peak 8 routine.
Well, even doing on the peak 8, just doing it in extension on the elliptical, as opposed to being benched over doing like this, you're just coming up.
What you just said for the elliptical is a great thing.
Yeah.
It applies to a treadmill when you're walking uphill or running. Keep your sternum high and keep your hips back with your weight back.
Oh, hips back too. I hadn't thought about that.
Just stick your butt out a little bit. Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it creates this movement from here, using more muscles, burning more calories, being in a safer structural environment.
So more than likely, see, one of the goals with PK is to get your heart rate up to max or even above max. But more than likely, with what we talked about in the interview, is it frequently is helpful to step back. So not really get to your maximum heart rate, at least initially, but focus on the form, get those muscles working, and then build up from there.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah.
There's this idea that intensity is the only thing that drives progress.
Yeah.
And, that's crap. It's not true.
That's a really important distinction.
Intensity doesn't drive progress. Focus.
That's a good one. That's a new one. Focus is part of the Founders Program.
Don't listen to this guy. Focus, form, and intent drive progress. Not intensity, intent. You have to repeat really good patterns. That's true progress. That's long-term progress. And then as you increase your form and your focus, your intensity gradually and naturally increases in a safe, effective, sustainable, that's the key here, sustainable way. So go back, the people that are doing the peak 8, I really like that. Like I told you, I watched the videos, and I think that what you're promoting there is a phenomenally efficient way of exercising.
It's so different than what has been promoted for the last 30 years, 40 years, which is aerobics.
And like everything,
cardio.
It's a great accessory. That's what people need to focus on in exercise, is that there is not one fix-all. There's not one cure-all. There's not one thing you should do. There's all kinds of different cultures who do all kinds of different exercises, and they're all somewhat similar as far as how healthy and strong they're able to become. Do a little research. I mean, it's really cool to see what other people do. There's stuff out there like MoveNat, the natural movement mechanism out there. That's a phenomenal thing. I mentioned Gray Cook earlier with the functional movement screens. I think all of these people that, a lot of people would say, well, that's his competitor. It's like, there are no competitors. Do you have any idea how many people there are in the world?
I think there's over 7 billion last time I checked.
The amount of people in the world, there are no competitors in the field of health. There are none. We are all working towards the same goal of helping people. And those guys are doing a really good job of it. This is just an accessory that will help you get more out of all of those other things.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that you weren't a big fan of squats with the barbell on the back, so you like the kettlebell. So maybe you can demonstrate that.
Sure. I mean, pretend I have a kettlebell.
Yeah,
and it's not that I'm not a fan of squats on the back. It's that I'm not a fan of squats on the back for people that aren't athletes that are trained to know exactly how to do that, whose bodies have developed the movement patterns to do that properly. For a very vast majority of the people putting a bar on their back, the first thing that happens let's just use 135 pounds, one plate on each side. They're here. They already have an inability to effectively absorb that pressure. Their spine is already absorbing pressure wrong. They just added 135 pounds of improper absorption. Then they do that squat, and like I showed you, I'm going to use you as an example here. They squat down, and even though the mechanics are pretty good, watch what happens to my neck.
Yeah, exactly what I was doing.
You're shortening your occiput, putting a lot of pressure on your jaw, putting a lot of pressure on the SCM muscles. That exact same thing done instead of this, like this, is much better. But even better than that, for the layman, for the everyday person, is to add about 20 or 30 pounds in front of you. Use it to keep your chest high, so you're not just holding it, you're lifting it. And then you're squatting in that same way. And it's just safer. Your legs you're a pretty tall guy. You can have a little bit wider legs for safety. Okay. The reason you want wider legs is because you want your belly to literally fall between your legs as you squat.
Oh, okay.
That's how you keep that pelvis. Aha. That was perfect. And it felt different too, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Your weight stays on the heels primarily.
Right.
You're using your quads as a secondary muscle,
so the
as
primary.
opposed to the primary muscle. Just moving like an animal.
Yeah.
Which is, that's what we are.
Yes.
You know? We're just animals that are able to film and pay attention and
well, it's just one of the reasons why I like the peak 8 exercises, because it more closely replicates what animals do in nature. I mean, they don't go out and run marathons for the most part.
And what they also don't do? When was the last time you saw a bear prop its leg up on something and just go, oh, and stretch like that? Oh, yeah, now I feel better. That's not how they do it. They stretch their whole system. You know?
Sure.
There's the downward dog in yoga, and what is the equivalent of a human, a downward human, is the founder position, which is this. It's pulling the hips back, stretching the entire body, and then standing up and stretching the entire
And you've got
body.
your feet flex or dorsiflex, right? When you went down, their toes are up.
When I come up, when I'm down here, if I'm balancing, I'm usually doing this.
Is that an advanced position?
No, it's the same position. It's just, you just get more comfortable in the balance. That's all. It's the exact same position, just with more experience.
Okay.
Nothing else. Yeah. The great thing about this, probably the most exciting thing for me is, I've told you about the athletes we work with, and you know the reputation this work is getting.
Sure, sure.
Is that what I have out to the public and what most people see is such a small percentage of it. The amount you can build on top of these basic exercises is infinite. So
that's interesting to know, but how does one access this knowledge base or this information that you're building? And
so again, the first place to go for now, and we're building up. We're playing catch up. I hired an amazing CEO named Ian Silverberg, who's running our business and really making sure that we have a sustainable business right now, which is really wonderful. But for now, go to my website, foundationtraining.com. I have free YouTube videos available with several workouts. Actually, there's some that are showing a lot of movements we haven't touched on here.
Okay.
I have that DVD. The DVD will last you for months of developing these patterns.
Okay.
It's 2.5 hours with several different workouts on it that will literally last you for months as you're learning this. The book, all these different things, but what we're doing is we're holding our first certification at the end of this year, December 3rd through 9th. We're going to have our first group of certified instructors.
And what type of person would be ideally targeted towards this certification?
We have everything from a lot of chiropractors, a lot of physical therapists, and a lot of Pilates and yoga instructors. We're looking for the right person. There's not a set of tools. We're looking for people that understand that this is a lifestyle. That this is something that you're going to build the rest of your career around. It's a new idea that is growing very, very rapidly.
This would be the very first one. You have no certified instructors right now.
Well, I have my group of certified instructors.
Around California.
We're the founders.
Right.
We're the ones that have started this whole movement. And what we will have after this year is our first group of 25 instructors, and by the end of next year, a good couple hundred.
Terrific.
And I cannot wait.
So when you have a few hundred, then you'll be able to have people all across the country where anyone watching this can go and see someone get individual mentoring.
When we sent out, I couldn't believe this, we sent out a very brief email to our mailing list saying, if you want to be certified, this is the application process. The inundation of applicants that we got was incredible. And we thought, oh, we're going to get a few states. We'll get a lot of California. We got 32 states in the U.S. and 8 different countries around the world. And not just Australia, Africa, Ireland, England. The people are coming out of the woodworks, and what I really love is that the people from other countries, every applicant was a doctor. Most of them actually osteopaths, which you'd appreciate.
Interesting.
Yeah, they understand. I think
so how did the awareness of your technique and approach become? How did they become aware of it? What was it your TED video?
The TED Talk was helpful.
Yeah.
It's definitely helpful. We have a really tight community, and within that community are a lot of very influential people. We've worked with a lot of professional athletes, but we also work with a lot of actors and celebrities and business leaders and politicians and people like that use this and talk about it amongst that community, which has really helped us spread. There have been a few really key influencers for us. One in the medical profession is the guy that I mentioned earlier, Tim Brown. Dr. Tim Brown, he's a chiropractor. He invented the IntelliSkin shirts, which again, I have nothing to do with those shirts, but I believe in them wholeheartedly because I've seen them work for every single person I've given them to, which is a pretty remarkable thing for a product.
Yeah.
You know, it's a brilliant. So you go here. Okay, so I'm stuck here. I'm going to give you a shirt that takes you here. Aha.
And what percentage of people are like this in your experience?
Most. 70, 80, 90. You know what? I would push into the 80s.
Okay.
I would say there's a solid 80% of the population that is uncomfortably rotated forward. And I would give a lot of that credit in the past 10 years to the smartphones. You know, what?
Or the computers.
Computers also. But I really think that we have
smartphones.
We've gone from here at a keyboard. At least you're still wide.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. On a keyboard, you're still here. When you go into a smartphone, you're slowly rotating closer and closer. They keep getting smaller, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think the new iPhone just came out and it's bigger.
No, it's only longer. It's still the same width.
So we have this plague of just being so shortened up front. It's completely logical that one of the fastest ways to help people is give them a very simple tool to open up these muscles that are not supposed to.
So for many of
be
these
short.
85% of the population that are flexed, this wearing this shirt is something they may get benefit from wearing it all day because it reminds them?
I would be surprised if they didn't.
Really?
Yeah, we're creatures of habit. Not all habits are active thoughts. Some of them are very simply being reminded physiologically of just opening up. And I think they do a really good job of doing that.
So something that most people would benefit from that are watching this is a simple thing that they can do every day when it comes into their conscious mind is just to open up. Extend those, pinch those shoulder blades back together, come up. And should they do anything? Well, they're sitting down probably. Is there anything they should consciously do with their pelvis or their hips?
Yes and no. I'm going to simplify that just a little bit.
Okay. Of course. There's a simplification principle.
Well, I want you to think of two measuring sticks. Yeah. One of them from here to here.
Okay.
So how long are you here? And then one of them from the base of the rib cage, right, just below the belly button, just right to the fold.
Oh, so there's two pivot points.
There's two. And if this is too short, chances are this is too short.
Okay.
And if this is too long, chances are this is too long. And it's all about getting into that comfortable zone. And I would say, again, if 80–85% of the population is too short, too short. And what that shirt does and what these exercises do is the exact opposite. Longer, longer. And they teach you to use all the muscles in the back of your body. Yeah. I know Tim's going to give me a big hug for mentioning this. He didn't ask me to, but I really believe in his stuff.
Yeah.
I
well,
really do.
That's the beauty of it. If you have something that works and it's truthful, then it's useful to share it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think your audience is going to get a lot of benefit from this stuff. I look forward to, if there's any other questions I can ever answer, if there's anything else that I can do for this group. Like I said, you've been a big influence in my own personal medical career.
Yeah.
And,
your journey to health.
Yeah,
we're all
absolutely.
on journeys.
We're all on journeys, and we all have key players that played roles.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm going to start playing a key role in yours as well.
Yes.
And
I'm excited
look
about
forward to returning that favor. But if there's anything I can ever do for your audience, is that I really love spreading this information, as I know you can kind of get a hold of and get an understanding of. And this has just been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. Appreciate all your help, and I really look forward to adopting and applying these. I haven't done it yet, but I'm very excited and going to be committing to it very shortly.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we can give you every tool you need.
Thanks.
Great.
All right.
Thanks a lot.